This is the Following the Joy podcast, a place to talk about being the best version of yourself, following your heart, making the changes needed, and having fun on this adventure we call life. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, then I invite you to stick around. I'm your host, Debbie Westwell, and this is Following the Joy. In today's episode, I am chatting to Jenny Bird, who's a holistic therapist specialising in energy healing, so for the likes of Reiki. She loves her job, she loves to help people, and from personal experience, she is amazing at what she does. She also just shares her knowledge in online courses as well as one-to-one sessions. And we talk about all things self-love, setting boundaries and saying no. Jenny gives us tips on self-care that you can do for free, and we talk about being consistent and realistic with it as well. We discuss what we say to ourselves before going to sleep and waking up, and incorporating positive affirmations into that. And we talk about manifesting and giving yourself the space to think and get the answers to what you need. I hope you love this one. Alrighty, I'm here with Jenny Bird. So hi Jenny, thank you very much for joining me today and agreeing to have a conversation with me.
Well, hello, and thank you for letting me be on your podcast. I'm very excited.
We're literally sat in Jenny's front room and we've got her beautiful dog Coco with us. So if you hear any random snuffles or barks, it's not Jenny or I. Or maybe it is, I don't know. So, Jenny, introduce yourselves to the listeners so they know who you are.
Hello, listeners. So my name is Jenny, and I've been a holistic therapist for about 20 years, and I offer sort of energy work, motivational coaching, and I sort of work a lot with my clients around sort of finding your authenticity, working from a place of who you are. And I do that treatments within my room, and I do some online courses as well. And I love what I do. I love a lot of the stuff that I use, I've found really useful for myself. So I love my job and I love to help people.
Yeah, and to be fair, I can completely attest to how fabulous you are, because I was broken at the beginning of the year and came to see Jenny, and wow, I had some amazing sessions. I mean, bless her, she's dealt with me sobbing like a snotty mess. But we had these amazing wellness sessions that were like a blend of like whatever you felt that I needed at the time, which was awesome. Yeah. And it's so nice that you can help people.
Yeah, and sort of like tailored to you. And I think, just in this sort of treatment room itself, it's just sort of providing that safe space, where you can be heard and that you can express, what's going on. And we can use the healing energy Reiki, to give you that place of stillness so that you can allow yourself just that quiet, so that you can work at what you're thinking in a safe, non-judgmental space. And, it is tailored to you. The sessions are never the same for anyone, and I think it's just allowing you that sort of time out, isn't it? And I think the journey tends to start there.
Definitely does. And then obviously you gave me and stuff and told me which crystals to meditate with, and
the toolkit.
And I trained in Reiki this year with Jenny as well, so I'm just a big advocate for Jenny, because she's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh no problem. You literally helped me on my path of like kind of healing myself. And I feel like there's probably a lot of people out there who felt a little bit like I did. I was overwhelmed. I had family stuff going on, but I was overwhelmed with work. I kind of reached that breaking point where I couldn't cope. Everything was making me grumpy, angry. I mean, even now, like I walked in here earlier and Jenny was like, oh, you look happier, like you look so much better. And that's basically from the start of the work that you did with me. So do you get a kind of a lot of people who come in that just aren't giving themselves permission to be them?
I think it's exactly that. I think it's that we are living a life that quite often, comes from people pleasing. We are, working from limiting beliefs that we are not worthy, that we don't deserve to make that space for ourselves. We must be busy. Rest is not productive. And I think, the kind of busy, crazy lives that we live today, quite often people have just these unrealistic expectations of how much that they can give. And I think usually when people first come into the treatment room, there is a quite an emotional release, because often it's just the fact that they've made time for themselves, they've chose them, and that feels really uncomfortable for them. And I think once you make that sort of choice that, I really do matter, and it all starts from that self-love. I always say to my clients, even if it's just that you remember to take your vitamins this week, and that's where you start. Or you just run a gorgeous bath once a week, and that's a simple thing that you do consistently. The journey really does start there, because it allows you then the space and the time, and it's coming from a place that I matter, I deserve to make this space for me. And then once you sort of start on that journey, I guess I find with my clients, and even myself, is that you start to hear yourself, and what you're maybe living isn't really aligned with what you need and who you are. So I definitely think that my clients really benefit from it. Just booking the appointment, just make the appointment, even if it's a massage or something, just start there.
Yeah, it's really hard for women, especially. I'm sure it is for men, but definitely for the women that I know, and especially those who've got children, to put themselves first, because it's not a natural, I just genuinely don't think it's a natural instinct for people, because you're constantly putting everybody else first. And I don't have children, so obviously I have family, and I was putting them first all the time. And actually, when I started putting myself first, it became awkward. Like I was questioning, like, am I less of a human being because I'm starting to prioritize myself? But I think like because I was respecting myself more, and it was hard to say no to my friends. Like a lot of my friends were like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And they're like, actually, no, I don't. But previously I'd have gone, yeah, all right. And in my heart, I'm going, oh, I really don't want to do that. Whereas,
so you find it easy to say yes to everybody else, but no to yourself. And that it's not that case at all. And like setting boundaries, I think, is something that people find so difficult. I did in the past. You know, I didn't even just say yes to people. I'd add extra bits on. You know, so I had to go to someone I didn't want to do, and suddenly I'm giving everybody left, there, back. You know, and I'm like, blinking heck, like this is not, you know. And I think once you make that sort of realization that you matter, you start to find it easier to say no. I would say with boundaries is start saying no to people, you know, maybe in a workplace environment, you know, where it's not quite as an emotional attachment, and then sort of start from there, and then let that creep into your life. But boundaries are definitely
that's such a good idea, because like actually when you say no, you're proving that you're respecting yourself. And whilst some people might be a bit like, what you mean you won't? And then like it means that other people start to respect you more.
Definitely, you know, you have a better relationship with people because they're more authentic and they're based on respect, equal. And I think also it's like releasing that kind of responsibility of how your no lands with other people. You know, it's not your responsibility. You know, ultimately, like if they need something from you and you're happy to give, that's great. But ultimately, if they're no longer getting to feed from what you used to give, that is not your responsibility. You know, you're not responsible for everybody's happiness. You know, you can be a kind and good person and choose you. So I definitely feel like boundaries are good, but it's something I've always found really, really hard.
I think it's something a lot of people find hard, like just even setting the boundaries. I love what you're saying though, like start easy, start with work.
People that's easier to like disappoint, you know, and say no to, you know, and then that gets comfortable. And I think continue with the self-love aspect, you know, when you're choosing you, I think it does get easier because you really want to honor yourself and honor your needs. And I think when you Coco's back in the fold here, and I think when you start to honor your needs and you kind of come from a place of like self-care, then I think it does get easier to say no, definitely.
Yeah, we're just chuckling because Coco, the little dog, had gone and sat on a different part of the couch and has just come back and basically curled up in a ball with Jenny and he's like looking completely chilled out and relaxed. So.
You have no problem setting boundaries, like pleasing yourself.
We should definitely be more Coco. Oh, brilliant. Well, I know for a fact that obviously loads of people where we live kind of absolutely love coming to you, and that's how I found you in the first place, because people were saying like literally it's made me make big decisions in my life by coming to Jenny and like having the treatments and stuff. But I think so not everybody can afford to have treatments. You know, we're kind of living in a time at the moment where people are worried a lot about bills and the economy and paying for heating even. So is there anything that people can do for themselves? I know obviously you mentioned before about baths and stuff, but what can people do for themselves?
Absolutely.
Just now?
Like self-care, you know, is not like, you know, I really sometimes like struggle with this whole like self-care. It sounds so self-indulgent and it sounds like it should be facials and luxuries, and it's not that. Self-care is literally, you know, choosing rather than doing everything for absolutely everybody in a week, and maybe just choosing to go for a walk, a mindfulness walk at your local woods. Like we've got one like 2 minutes down the road and I'm there all the time. And that's kind of where the journey started for me. And I would take like just a walk, and instead of thinking of other things and other people, I would just look at literally what was around me. So mindfulness is just being present in the moment. So what can you hear? What can you smell? What can you see? And just focusing on what's around you. And it's so good, for us to be able to work from that frontal part of the brain, which is more rational, and it allows us to not feel as overwhelmed. So if all you can manage that week is, a 10-minute walk, even round the block, and just kind of notice the colors you can see, that is going to be so beneficial to your well-being and how you manage the overload, the overwhelm. That doesn't have to cost anything. I think baths are a really, for me, a really good way of being able to switch off and unwind. And I think I would always advise people to do things like consistently. So like small things, but done consistently. So if all you're doing is on a Thursday, that's your like little pamper night. You can get a few samples, go around the shops, get the freebies, get samples. I'm always a fan of that. Got a wee pile, hotel, help yourself, and get yourself some little, little pampers, and make sure that that's a night for you. And if all that is that you're going to spend an hour reading your book, something that's just for you, and it doesn't have to cost anything. And I think things done consistently is probably my biggest tip. Don't try and have this whole new well-being plan that it's not realistic, that you're not going to start with just a couple of things.
That's such a good idea. And I guess also if you do it like every Thursday night, you have your pamper night, like you're looking forward to it, then aren't you? So like on Wednesday you're already thinking about, well, tomorrow night I've got my like pamper night,
and it snowballs from there, doesn't it? Because then it's like you start to recognize how you feel from that. Little tips, well, probably my big tip would be what you say to yourself before you go to sleep and when you wake up. So our subconscious brain, is our dominant brain. So if you're acting from a place of, I don't deserve to make this space for myself, etc., when you're going to sleep, the brain's in theta, so it allows you to access the subconscious. So even if you don't believe it to begin with, before you go to sleep and when you wake up, I deserve to make space for myself. I am worthy of love. I love and care for myself. Whatever that affirmation is for you, the brain's most open to that time. So I find that that's like a really good tip, and people then get a really good sleep with that mindset, because we think about what we last thought about throughout our sleep.
So I've got to say, I do that every night before I go into bed. I like do my what I'm grateful for of that day. I don't necessarily do like affirmations, which I feel like I'm going to start doing affirmations.
Really, really good,
and then every day, as soon as I open my eyes, I'm like, good morning, world. Today is a good day. I tell myself, because I think you've got like 5 seconds or something like that before your active brain kicks in and starts going, I've got to do this and I've got to do this. And, I've got to go to work today or whatever. So and then I always do. I always pull an angel oracle card, and I always write a gratitude list. And I started that at the beginning of this year, and I really, really struggled. Like I think at the beginning of the year, I'll have to pull some out and take a photograph at some point. At the beginning of the year, I think I managed to do 3. Now I'm like, now I can't stop.
I'm grateful for my health. They all sound the same.
I'm grateful that I'm awake, I'm alive. Do you know what I mean? Or like I always I'm grateful for my family and friends. I'm grateful that I'm alive. Like but now I'm like, oh, I just can't stop writing things. So
and it just grows with that, because like you work a lot with like manifesting energy. I love all that. It's like it grows that energy. So with the gratitude, you just tend to get more of it. So that's like a really good cheap tip, isn't it? Like if your mindset's grateful, even if you're not in the situation you want to be in, focus on the gratitude, you will just get more and more of that. So it's that
absolutely
energy.
I mean, we're making it kind of sound easy, aren't we? And it's not. It's definitely a journey, because I think like it probably sounds dead blasé. Oh, just do this. And if you're not in that mental space where you can do that, like you said, starting small is massive. But also when you start manifesting, you don't always get for what you ask. Well, you get what you ask for, but you've not always it never comes how you want it.
And sometimes it's got to be like loss and kind of shifts and movements. And I always say to people that like it does come with a warning label. When I remember like major things that I've wanted to manifest, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Like it's like everything's getting lost. But when I look back, it had to move and change that way in order to get me to where I wanted to be and exactly what I asked for. So for a lot of the times for me, it's been like I've craved freedom, and with that comes a lot of loss in order to create the space for me to be able to work and live freely, and it's no pretty at the time, but on the other side,
because you had a successful salon in our business, didn't you? In our business, in our village, but you also employed people, and
Yeah, and it came with like a lot of responsibility. It was not, I've never closed a business before. I'd never opened one. And, on the back of a pandemic, the salon that I had was shut 8 months out of 12. So what it was like before, the pandemic was obviously quite different. And obviously in that time, through the lockdown, like loads of people, they did have this introspection, didn't they? They took that time out, and I just loved the stillness. I loved the phone no ringing. I loved the freedom, and I realized that the way I was living, I wasn't free. And so for me, I think I definitely, when I came back after lockdown into that kind of working environment, it was like my body reacted to it. It did not like the stress. And, I kept kind of fighting it, really found it very difficult to make that decision. And ultimately, you are responsible. But for me, I kind of thought if I could leave all the, jobs in place for everyone and have no appointments were disrupted, I would be able to, I think, work out what I wanted to do after it. So, I decided to, move on into a different kind of way of living. And I didn't do anything for ages, and it was nice. But and then I did help my husband a bit with his company, and then I was drawn back to this. So,
and I think that's it, though, isn't it? Like you've got to have those honest conversations with yourself, and sometimes it's not, the majority of people don't like what's happening, or don't like. Sometimes even family don't agree with like decisions that you make.
They don't.
But you've got to do 100% what's right with you, and have those honest conversations and listen to your body and go, oh, do you know what? Maybe this isn't for me, or
and I think that's the thing. Like for me, I remember sort of saying to myself, actually, this doesn't have to make sense to everybody. I've made quite key changes in my life, throughout my life. I'm definitely somebody that follows my gut and follows my heart. And like even when I moved down here, I had like gorgeous big close family up here, but my husband was from here and moved down, and it doesn't have to make sense to everybody, and it won't, because it's from their perspective. And I certainly would, like my business, like I was sat with the facts. I was the one that it was so complicated, it wasn't an easy decision, and so to make the general overall thing. And I think I just, for the first time in my life, I just took myself away, and I was able to just rest and chill and have some time out. And that wasn't normal for me. I was always somebody that would put everybody else first. But I think ultimately, it's not wrong to choose you, and it doesn't have to make sense for everybody. And you're not responsible for absolutely everybody's happiness. There's sometimes in your life where you're struggling and you just need to choose you, and that's totally fine,
And I think also, like, here's the big cliche: you can't pour from an empty cup. And especially like as a holistic therapist like yourself, you are basically giving your energy to people, and you're trying to solve other people's problems, but you can't do it if you aren't coming from a good place yourself. So you've definitely, sometimes it's better to slow down, isn't it? Or take a breather and then kind of just
and sort of reassess. I think, like for me, I thought, I won't want to do treatments again. It's the treatments I don't like, but it was absolutely the treatments that I loved, and I would say to anybody, like, I think just the stillness, like, obviously if you're working a full-time job, to be able to go off and have that time to yourself, it's not always easy, is it? And I get that. And I think, I was sort of lucky in that time that I had the space to think. But I would definitely say that, maybe say no to stuff you don't need to be doing at the weekend and on your days off, and just sit with yourself and make that space for yourself. And quite often that is where you get the answers. It is in the kind of quietness. And, not everybody feels comfortable with that. I know, but I definitely think that's a really good start if you're sort of not where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually going back to what you were saying before about the self-care and like, what can you introduce slowly? We do it at work all the time. We diarize things. We have meetings. So actually diarize that time for yourself, or like literally block out that Sunday morning. And then sometimes if you've got kids or whatever, you might not be able to, but you might be able to get up an hour early and literally block out that hour and go for that walk. It's in your diary, you've got to do it then. Do you know what I mean?
It's like little tips I was giving people last week, and I was saying what I do. So say, for instance, on the school run, sometimes I make myself a nice brew, sit in my car for that 10 minutes, and then when it's like just ready for the job, I'll go and pick my daughter up or whatever, and I make that 10 minutes. For me, it's only 10 minutes, but do you know what? I feel better and I'm more present when I pick the kids up. So it's like just looking at where are you spending your time, and actually you can squeak it in here and there. It doesn't have to be big. We're not going on big retreats, it can be just 10 minutes before you pick the kids up.
I love that. 10 minutes with a cup of tea in the car.
It's a poor do, isn't it? It's like, if that's all you can find time for. I used to say, literally, the time to myself was on the toilet, and then when I had kids, I didn't even have time. It's like the dog and the kids, everybody
wants a piece of you. thing though, isn't it? Like some days, you know, you're awesome, you wake up in the morning, you've got so much energy, you can take on the world. And then some days you're just like,
no,
not today.
No, it's not happening. And sometimes it'll go in like a week. You're like, oh, it's like good. And I think that's where I've got better, is that I'll know when it's like gone on too long to think, right, I'm just not having, I need something for me here. This, you know, I'm gonna do something nice.
It's weird when you start something. So for example, like obviously we talked about me doing the gratitude log, and I now notice if I can miss the odd day, but if I've done a couple of days consecutively, I can feel a slight dip in how I'm feeling and my positivity. And and also getting out in nature. So we've had some storms here in the UK recently, and there was a couple of days where I literally could not get out and walk in nature. And it doesn't matter how tired I am, if I get myself out in nature, it like revives me. And so I was like feeling, oh no, I don't like this. I don't like, I'm going to have to like put me like galoshes on, not that I've got galoshes, but you know what I mean, like big waterproof everything on in order to get out and get out in the storm. It's just when it's windy, I don't want to be blown into the sea. But so I think it's just learning to notice, isn't it? And just like you said, that little consistencies of
and just sort of having, so you're like, you're not sort of pitching a tent and staying in that. It's okay for you to honor your feelings, you know, and like have hard days, and you know, you don't want to suppress anything, but at the same time you don't want to sort of pitch a tent and stay there. So it's finding you little things that will help bring you back up.
Such a good analogy,
you know. Don't pitch a tent and stay there. I'll say that with 10 times a week. Another thing I would say as well is the last wee thing on that is that if you're noticing where you feel it in your body, so I'll do, because I do a lot of energy work, I sort of really encourage my clients to notice. So for me, like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I feel it in my chest, and my hand automatically I will press against, you know, like you know, upper chest, and I'm like, oh, I can really feel that tightness there. Start to notice where you feel it in your body. Some people it's the throat, the head, you know, some people feel it in the knees. Start to notice where you feel it in your body, and that's quite a good indicator, like, do you know what, I'm feeling this overwhelmed.
And also, like you said, start to notice where you put your hand naturally, you know, so like sometimes you put your hand to your throat, don't you, when you don't want to say something, or like you said, like, you know, if someone's shocked or scared, they automatically hand to the mouth or hand to the heart area. So I think
you do some tapping in that area, you know, to help like self-regulate, and you can feel like, you know, just a little bit calmer, you know, if you're in a situation. I
love all of that. Now, Jenny, tell us, how can people find you? Because obviously some of the work that you do is kind of hands-on, so you'd have to be in a local area. But is there anything that you can do for our people who are a little bit further afield?
So we can do sort of online coaching sessions on Zoom, and we can do kind of wellbeing, self-love coaching sessions. And also I do a sort of 11-day finding the calm in the chaos. And then the idea around that is that no matter, even if you're a full-time job, 50, 60-hour weeks, we can teach you some of the things that we spoke about today, how to incorporate that into your busy life, you know, so it's not all off going on retreats and things like that. We can do it in that way, so that it's like normal little tips, you know, eat a banana in the morning for potassium, you know, which vitamins to take. We look at like an all-round wellbeing, things that are going to help you find the calm amongst a chaos life. And that's an online course. So you can find me on Instagram, the Holistic and Wellness Coach, and Facebook as well.
Brilliant. So the Holistic and Wellness Coach on social media. I'll put a link in the show notes anyway, so that people can find you, because everybody needs a Jenny in their life and a Coco.
She's looking at me like,
literally like, I'm me. Yeah, super. I think everybody needs a doggy in their life. I'm not allowed dogs where I live, so I'll just borrow other people's.
Peel her off me.
So we've had some amazing wisdom from Jenny today. So I think like the biggest takeaways are probably use your intuition and kind of take a little bit of time just to consider how you're feeling, and it's okay to change things, is one of them. I think the second one is you don't have to spend money in order to do some self-care. You obviously, you know, there's a whole range of things that you can do whilst spending money, but you can get out in nature walking. You can literally sit in your car for 10 minutes with a cup of tea, or you can take a bath, you know, kind of free things. I think you could probably even sit in a closet with a book if that's that's what you want to do.
Don't let them in.
Think about like kind of those affirmations, those positive affirmations and gratitude before going to bed and waking up in the morning. They're the big takeaways, I think. And put boundaries in place. That's the scary one, isn't it? So
I think that's the big thing. It's just, it's not wrong to choose you. If you're saying yes to everyone and no to you too often, have a look at that.
Yeah. So, okay. So my challenge to everybody listening now is, what can you do today to pick up one of those things? Can you get out in nature today? Can you, even if you don't do it immediately, can you consider where you can start putting a boundary in place or saying no to people when it doesn't light you up? Obviously, don't say no just for no reason, but when it doesn't light you up, when can you say no to somebody? And then just start to notice the slight shifts that your life will take, because you are respecting yourself a hell of a lot more, and therefore things will flow a lot more easier in your life. So Jenny, it's been awesome. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. So as I say, I'll put everything, all of the notes and links into the show notes. And thank you ever so much for being with us. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. And as always, any links or anything mentioned will be in the show notes. If you haven't connected with me yet, I'd love to meet you. So come find me on Instagram at Debbie Westwell. Why not slide into my DMs and tell me what you thought of this episode? And if you like what you hear, then please follow me or hit the bell icon, share with somebody like you who would benefit from listening, and all positive reviews are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being your wonderful self, and I can't wait to chat next time.